pizza time.
Hey everybody, it's just me today. So I'm very much late to talking about a handful of cool nerdy stuff that's been going on recently, like Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Thor. Very late on Doctor Strange review, a handful of Star Wars things, some super suits that were leaked, and a bunch of stuff I would like to talk about. And so I had some time, and I decided I'm going to start talking about these trailers and whatnot. And in trying to watch some trailers and also look at what other people have been saying to kind of get a feel for it and form my own opinion, you kind of fall down this weirdly gross, cynical rabbit hole of complaints and both blatant and vague sexism. And so at first I thought maybe I won't do a little video on all of these new shows and characters and such, but maybe just like one big video addressing that pushback towards these characters. But I'm not an expert in anything, and that it would really just be me rambling as to why I don't think it's an issue. And I also feel like I don't really need to defend why I like these characters at the moment. And so I'm not going to make one great big video about it, because I do want to talk about each of them, and I think they each deserve a video getting into why I'm excited for each thing. Maybe one day we'll do a video talking about why I don't think it's such an issue to have a more diverse cast of characters in a franchise that is representing the entire world. Anyway, getting into She-Hulk right now. That's a rough one to start with, because I do acknowledge and do agree that right now the CGI is rough. And that's really all people have been talking about. And it's fair, because it is weirdly bad for some of the other stuff we've seen. People keep comparing it to the log scene in Moon Knight, like that's really the worst CGI we've ever seen. I think that one suit-up scene in Moon Knight is definitely worse. I hope to God it's not done yet, because it's weird that in this trailer She-Hulk looks so rough while Hulk and Abomination look so good. Granted, they've had Hulk files probably somewhere for years now, but it's still bizarre to me. I also realized on the internet it's been talked about that Marvel has repeatedly asked, when they were doing the CGI for She-Hulk, to make her smaller, which I'm not crazy about, and a lot of people feel the same way. And I am hoping that this is because towards the end of the show, that'll be like other shows and other movies, there's like the super suit or the final form reveal, if you will. Like Wanda getting her Scarlet Witch suit and Moon Knight going all out with his powers and Layla coming in at the last episode. Sam in his Captain America outfit. You know, there's kind of that classic superhero thing of it's the third act or the final episode in which they become truly them. And that's kind of different with She-Hulk in that Jennifer considers her Hulk form to kind of be more who she actually is, at least in the comic books. And so watching the show with it have a lot of her as She-Hulk might just be more of like the baseline character. And towards the end, when maybe that courtroom battle or whatever it is she has to deal with, maybe that unleashes like the stronger, more aggressive, muscular version. I would hope. Maybe that's already giving them too much credit. I feel like it's possible, because She-Hulk, she does have a couple of variations in how she looks in the comics. There's the very muscular version, which of course we all want to see. We want to see her go crazy and be as strong as she can be. But there's also there are some versions in the comics where she really just kind of looks like a taller Gamora. She is just a very tall green lady. And then of course there's more like the savage She-Hulk, where she's just a monster of a lady in a good way. So I don't know. I just feel like the fact that they show us her in her purple and white outfit already makes me think that her in a super suit isn't really gonna matter as much, because as a Hulk person, it's the stature and the green that really matter. It's not so much the outfit they wear. I feel like there's a chance that could be why they made her smaller for the trailer and for the majority of the show, is because in comparison to the Hulk form later, we want there to be some contrast. I could be wrong. We'll revisit this statement when the show comes out. Her overall build and CGI aside, I think the show looks really cool. I'm excited for it. I like this idea of exploring the lower level superhuman aspect of the MCU, because as the what Nick Fury says in the Avengers, the world is filling up with people who can't be matched and can't be controlled. We're seeing that more and more in the movies and characters we have, but there's going to be little examples like Frogman and Titania, and that we don't get to see. And I'm excited to see how the world is dealing with all these people who now feel they can be vigilantes or they could be superheroes, because we haven't gotten to see that a whole lot, especially if the Netflix series don't count as MCU canon. And again, the MCU, even if it is or isn't, those are still well-trained, super-powered accidents and such. So I want to see examples of both non-powered and powered but not trained, focused, controlled superhumans in this. What I am a little cautious of, though, is they're going to have to change up a lot of these characters' origins and how they get their powers. Titania does look like she has super strength in this trailer. In the comics, she gets her powers through a kind of convoluted alien, Secret Wars, Battle World, Doctor Doom way. We're not going to get into it right now, but that's how she gets her powers. That clearly can't happen in this show. So it's got to be something else, and I'm just hoping it makes sense. Now, that's a little segue into getting powers and making sense. She-Hulk. How is she going to acquire her hulking powers? Because in the comic books, she gets shot by a gang. I don't remember the name. I just read this. She's bleeding out, and she requires a blood transfusion from her cousin, who is Bruce Banner. And in the comics, I think he maybe loosely admits to himself, like, this probably isn't the best idea, but we're going to give it a shot because we have no other choice. The MCU, I think, exists in a level of realism enough where he would know probably not to do that if he is already in Hulk form, because they talk about that, I think, a little bit in The Incredible Hulk. They just have bags and bags of his blood, and he just wants them all destroyed because his blood is just dangerous in general. And we see, we have a perfect example. Stan Lee's cameo ingests some of his gamma blood, and he goes to the hospital. So I don't think there's going to be this, well, your cousin is injured and desperately needs a blood transfusion from you, and he's going to be like, oh, okay. Like, no, I don't think that's going to happen. What I think could be possible is if they do the blood transfusion thing before he becomes Hulk. And I don't know how long transfused blood lasts, or if it really affects your physiology, your biology. It probably doesn't. I'm not a biologist, so take this theory with a grain of salt. But if they do the whole blood transfusion thing well before he becomes Hulk, and she's got a little bit of his blood like left over, and then the snap happens 3 times on Earth in the course of 5 years, and that radiation's mostly gamma, and that exposure to gamma radiation affects the latent Bruce Banner blood within her, and it turns her into a Hulk person. I don't know, maybe that could work. That's something I really hope that they address, and they address it in a way that makes sense. Maybe we're going to find out that the Banner family just has a predisposition to gamma exposure. Not be my favorite, but be intriguing. We'll see. That's a question they're going to have to answer, and it makes sense, because how else? Like, She-Hulk is one of those characters that, because it's Marvel and because she's not that old. I mean, she's from 1979, which at this point is over 40 years ago. But she's not so old like some of the DC characters where the origin has changed several times, where there's like different versions of it. Now, there might be like multiverse examples that I'm not aware of, but she gets her powers, she loses her powers and gets them back in a couple of different ways. But as far as there being another solid example of how she can get her powers, that's not the blood transfusion. I don't know. It's not like the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four have the two versions. There's the space version and then the Ultimate Story other dimension version, and we've had a movie with both. So yeah, I would say for She-Hulk, I'm apprehensively excited. I think there's a lot of good and cool stuff to be excited for, and I think there's a lot of interesting things to be explored. And I'm excited. Like I do hope they change the CGI, but I'm excited to see her as an ongoing superhero in the MCU moving forward. I have no qualms or issues with it being a woman and exploring women things. Like, she's cool. She's a cool character. So far, the MCU, with the handling of its female characters, I don't think it's been done horribly. I think it could be done better overall moving forward, and I think that it will be. I hope that it will be. There's so much negative pushback already, and why? And like, if you have issues with how some of these characters have been made or written in the MCU, that's one thing. But the smaller handful of fans that are saying Marvel and Disney is so woke, why are we gender swapping the Hulk? They don't even know that she's a character that's been around for 40 years. See, like when you don't even know that the character has existed for a long time and been like an active member in both the Fantastic Four and the Avengers on and off, like your argument's not even valid. Like just stay out of it. The other thing that I am very excited for, but again, I want to see it done right, is that She-Hulk can break the fourth wall. She was doing it long before Deadpool. And Scott Nicewonder from NerdSync, Comic Misconception Videos, love him, great stuff. He did a whole video talking about how she was taught how to do this, implying that it's like a thing that can be taught to other characters. All you have to do is be made aware of it by another comic book character who could break the fourth wall. She taught her how to do it, showed her that she was in a comic book, all that good stuff. And I'm just wondering, how are you going to do that in the show? They've already confirmed that she is going to be breaking the fourth wall. So I'm hoping she doesn't just walk on into frame and she's already like addressing people like Ferris Bueller. I'm hoping they go the route of maybe having a character who for some reason already does know, and it is taught to her in that kind of cool way. I don't know. It's such a interesting thing, and it's going to be our first example of it in the MCU that I hope it's done right, and I hope it's done in a way that is true to her comic book roots. Like, I mean, why not do it that way? Unless there's a better way to do it, which I don't know of yet. But I like that in the MCU, we know Deadpool's coming around, and that's his thing. But I like that She-Hulk is going to be doing it first in the MCU because she did it first in the comics. So that's where I'll cap this one. Overall, I'm excited. There are things to be concerned about, but I don't think they are, other than the CGI, I don't think they're that problematic. Just hope that she's done right. I hope that her comic book roots, origins are done right, and I hope that she's folded into this superhero world in a cool way, and feel it's fair to say that so far there's not a big reason to think that she won't be. Could be wrong there. That's just me. See you next time. I think next I'm going to talk about Miss Marvel.
Pizza time.